What's up, guys? What's up? About to show you exactly where Matt Cox's office is. It's right there. That's it, right there. He works out of a liquor store. I'm just kidding, of course. I wouldn't do that to Matt. Anyways, I'm here today to actually just talk about what it felt like to get interviewed by Matt Cox, because I think that's kind of interesting. And considering you probably found this channel because you watched a Matt Cox interview in the style of Matt Cox, let's do it. Let's talk about it a little bit. Hey guys, let's talk about it a little bit. Well, I just got interviewed by Matt Cox, and I just have to say, I am beyond appreciative and kind of humbled to be in his presence. I know this is probably like way overplaying his significance in the world a little bit, but he's someone that I kind of look up to, and I think he's pretty cool. So I just want to chat about what it was like to be interviewed by him and some of my general thoughts on the interview, as well as, more importantly, what I didn't share in the Matt Cox interview that I wish I would have shared. So when you watch the Matt Cox interview, when you're watching me, what you see is someone who has actually written out their story and actually rehearsed what they were going to say. I know, shocking, because I probably kind of carried myself like somewhat of an idiot, and maybe I'm just being overly self-deprecating right now, but I really did practice telling especially the crime portion of my story. Now, after I told the crime portion of my story, I had not practiced anything. I've been super busy leading up to this. I actually have clients for my website, leadsprinter.com, and despite what all the internet gurus want to tell you, making money on the internet is not easy, and you have to work really, really hard to keep that cash coming in. I've been doing very well for all my clients, and I believe I'm going to continue to be doing very well for all my clients, but that comes at a cost, and that cost has really been pretty much all of my time. So let's kick things off with my first vlog post the Matt Cox interview. Again, I loved being interviewed by Matt Cox. I thought it was really fascinating to see his studio and actually meet him and see all of his success coming to fruition. There's also this interesting element where I've had a pretty long, let's be honest, parasocial relationship with Matt Cox. Matt Cox has been a podcast that I've been kind of obsessed with for going on over 5 years now. Depending on what's going on with my life and how much free time I have, I might be listening to his podcast from 2 to 5 or even 6 hours a day. Like, this is just a guy that, for whatever reason, I think it's captivating. And maybe part of that is that I'm grinding so hard to keep my business going and keep my cash flow going that, unfortunately, let's be honest, I'm kind of a bit of a victim to this special, magical, fantastical, let's just call it what it is, fantasy that, ooh, what if I went and made $1 million with a scam? I could go and make a whole bunch more money and I could quit my job. Here's the other thing though. Part of the reason why I'm listening to Matt Cox so much is that I actually have a history of being a criminal. Granted, I didn't go to prison. Granted, I didn't even really get charged with anything at any point. But if you listen to the interview, I think it's unfair to say it's not a compelling story. Now, here's where we're at right now. I just did the interview. I believe in the interview. I think it's a great interview. But, and here's the big but. I hate to say but. I had one sales director who told me never say but. But let's just be honest. Sometimes you gotta say but. Sometimes you just gotta keep it honest with people. Here's the big but for you. I didn't practice anything I wanted to say after the crime, and I started stumbling over my words. And as I was looking in Matt Cox's eyes, telling my story, trying to make sense of things after the interview, you could see Matt's eyes glossing over. I didn't know if this was conscious. I didn't know if he was tired, but As I reflected on it, I realized I may have just genuinely really fucking bored him. I had practiced telling the story in the most entertaining possible way that I could have, and when it came to the aftercare of the interview and what comes next in my life, I hadn't thought about what to say. I was at a loss for words, and I felt kind of anxious. For large parts of the interview, as uncomfortable as every section might have been, I actually really put a lot of thought into how am I going to say this? Why am I going to say this? How does this part of the story affect that part of the story? And yeah, I'm no grand storyteller here. I'm not a paid storyteller. I'm not someone that's been sort of tightening the story up professionally for a significant period of time. But this is a story that is a very deep part of my life that probably doesn't even necessarily need to be rehearsed or practiced. What comes after that story is a totally different story. I hate to keep using that word. I feel like I've said that word like 50 fucking times in the last 2 minutes. Anyhow, I digress. Here's some things that I wish I would have said during the Matt Cox interview. Not because Matt Cox didn't think to ask them. I'm very appreciative he gave me the interview, but mostly because I hadn't rehearsed, and I am also extemporizing more of this than I care to admit. So I'm gonna reel things back in for a second and let you know that there's actually just a couple of parts of the story I think are really integral to understand what happened afterwards in my life. The first part of it is that we're going to talk about Officer Billington. Officer Billington, if you watch my Matt Cox interview, comes up 2 times. He's discussed as a character that comes up when I am stealing beer out of a garage, then when I am initially interviewed by police to see if I know anything about whether or not I know why guns were stolen from my house. But there's actually a 3rd time he comes up, and I just really wish I would have remembered this, but hey, we're here now and we can talk about it. So, why did Officer Billington come into my life a 3rd time? Well, in the interview, I talked about my relationship with YouTube and my father being a part of why all of my videos were deleted and why I actually started to gain some notoriety around my school because I had made a salacious video about Catholic priests. Here's the interesting thing. My mother had been having increasingly psychotic episodes, and this is where the start of increasingly psychotic episodes is at her kidnapping my sister and I, believing that Satan was chasing us. So this is getting really fucking nuts, because at this point in my life, I'm probably about 16 or 17 even. This is after I committed my crime, after I got caught. My mother had escaped several assisted living facilities, and she had done this to varying degrees of success. At one point, she had even convinced my father to let him pay for an apartment for her and her alcoholic mother, which is kind of weird, but hey, live and let live. I remember going to visit my mother and her alcoholic mother on several occasions, and they were doing relatively okay. That being said, my mother regularly hallucinated that she was building houses with Elvis, that she was fighting demons, that she was keeping the world safe by summoning orbs and containing the power of Christ and the universe within an orb. You could see her in the backyard sort of moving her hands around. So it was a pretty sad situation for my mother. Well, one night, my mother decides not only does she not want to live in the apartment my father is paying for her and her mother, but she also wants to kind of go on the run again. But she doesn't get very far, and she does have a little bit of money to work with, not much. I think she probably had a bank account with between $500 and $1,000 in it. God only fucking knows, but she has a little bit of money, and I'm only speculating that specific number because she at the very least paid for a hotel. She gets out of her apartment, she goes to a hotel, she's telling everybody she's gonna leave, that she's not going back to the apartment, that there's satanic forces that are attacking her. So she's in this hotel. Well, my family and my dad gets word of this. I think she had made a call about this, and she had also gone through a phase where she had fallen in love with a woman named God Constantine. And God was a woman that had taken her in at some point, and I think they had even had a lesbian relationship, which I think it actually made my father jealous and kind of devastated. And there's so many layers of what the fuck inside of this, right? There's like 15 layers of what the fuck inside of this. Because what the fuck, you're my wife and you cheated on me with a woman named, with God? You cheated on me with fucking God, right? And then also on top of that, like, yeah, but you're my wife and you have brain tumors, and my father actually divorced my mother because he was on the hook for a lot of bills and he didn't want to continue to have to pay all of those. So that was a very sensitive thing within our household. Hey, we're getting divorced. We're still married spiritually. We're still married on paper, but I'm going bankrupt. So there's just so many things that you have to really think about. My mother ends up going to this hotel. I go to visit my mother. My father is irate that my mother is trying to get a sense of independence or is clearly having a psychotic episode or something in between and entirely different that we can't actually explain because who knows why anyone does anything. Anyways, I digress. I go to visit my mother at the hotel. My father is calling the police to have my mother removed from the hotel. And who shows up but Officer Billington? I go to meet Officer Billington. This is my third time I see this recurring character in my life, and we go up in the elevator together. He remembers me from the garage. He remembers me from lying about having my father's gun stolen. And now here he is encountering me at a hotel while my father is trying to have my mother forcefully removed from a hotel room. You just can't make this fucking shit up. So Officer Billington is talking to me and he says, I'm not sure there's anything we're going to be able to do. And this is the first time I see Officer Billington eye to eye, and we have a human moment where there's an understanding that, oh my God, this shit with my mom is beyond the loony bin. It is beyond reality. And everything my father is saying is making sense. She should probably go to a hospital. She should probably go back to her apartment with her mother. Granted, she's an alcoholic, but whatever. She should probably do all these things. But she's still an American citizen. She can still be in a hotel for the night. And so Officer Billington and I go to the door. I go inside. Officer Billington stays at the door. And Officer Billington ends up telling us, hey, your mom is clearly probably very unwell, but there's nothing I can do. That's the end of the saga with Officer Billington. And with that, I'd like to say, again, I had so much fun being on Matt Cox's podcast. I'm looking forward to continuing to share stories about my childhood as well as new things. Hey, how am I making a dime with AI? And that's not from me coming from a place where I want to sell you a BS course or scam anybody. That's just legitimate. I'm actually running a business that's making the most of what I can make the most of with regarding AI and software development and sales, and I'm doing fairly well. I'm not doing as well as I would like to be doing, but I'm doing okay for myself, and I hope to continue to do well for myself. The job market has changed a lot and my workload has gotten way bigger than I've ever wanted it to get. So I hope you're doing well. Only for this video. I hope you're doing well. That's me doing a little Matt Cox impression for you. I hope you're doing well. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you some other time.